Good morning, people. Hope we are doing well. A couple things I want to share with you. I got a question, and it's an interesting one. It's one of direction, one of wisdom causation, if you will. Had a great spin class this morning. The only person to show up, like she really tried to make me quit. Great spin class, great workout this morning. It's been a smooth morning. If you follow, just quick side note, if you follow my Instagram, Snapchat, or YouTube stories, you will see I'm currently doing some exercises and some training with not really a special operations unit, but it's closely associated with something that will be considered different. It's probably the best way to put it. Anyway, yeah, some interesting stuff going on, at least for the rest of the week, and we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, having some fun, getting out the office, meeting a lot of different people. And we'll probably touch on that a little bit more later. But yeah, in regards to the question, had a gentleman inbox me, and I'm slowly catching up on my DMs. So of course, if you have questions, feel free to keep sending them. I'll do my best to get to them. Anyway, so I'll read it as follows. Good afternoon, Ray. Fell into a rabbit hole of your videos within the past 2 weeks, as I've just had the first talk with the recruiter today. Awesome. That's what's up. One question I'd like to hear your opinion on is, what do you think about my situation? I'm 24 with a biomed engineering degree, looking to join the Air Force. No brainer, go to OTS, right? That would make the most sense from a purely financial standpoint, getting a return on investment on your degree. I don't like to assume, but if I were to assume, you might have debt, in terms of, student loans or what have you. You might have consumer debt in terms of a credit card, and you could have neither. Your parents could have paid for the whole thing, and then you walk away scot-free. You walk away with leverage on the job market, which is ideally how most of us would love to go to college and attend that way. Is just have everything kind of lined up that way and have a great start to your adult life. A lot of people don't have that, and so I like to, try to touch on the majority of people who have to deal with those circumstances. So, yeah, moving on. This may just be in my head, but I've been thinking about it a lot. But I don't know how good of a leader I'll be. And to be honest, a little afraid of taking a leadership role. Obviously, they'll train me, and sometimes they say the best way to confront a fear is to deal with it directly. That's facts. That's big facts. But I'm worried about failure and letting people around me down more than myself. And I'll go ahead and finishing the read. Possible paths of career. I was also looking at the special warfare and where jobs like TAC-P, SR are enlisted too, not officer routes. Just a little overwhelmed, excited, a lot of feelings. Highly appreciate your feedback. Sorry for the long message. Thank you. Cool. Let me find what your name is. Brian, that's a very good question. And you're talking to the right person, because imposter syndrome, I made a whole live stream on that, in terms of the thought, the feelings associated with thinking. And a lot of times it's an erroneous thought to immediately place upon yourself the thought that I'm not good enough to do insert whatever. It's usually false. Why? Because you're either whatever you think you can do and whatever you think you can't do, you both of them are correct, because you're literally a thought and an action away from simply starting the journey. To keep this from being deep and motivational and aspirational, let's make this practical. Because first of all, I'm going through this right now. I'm not an officer. I'm a staff sergeant. Been wearing staff for about a year. Just went through ALS back in November and December of 2020. And I sit at my brand new base, Cannon Air Force Base, and I'm a brand new finance staff sergeant who's never had a troop under him. I now have 3. ALS prepares you for the mindset of a leader, and that's about it. They give you some theory and just about 1 or 2% of application in terms of giving feedback, how to communicate properly, using the right words. pulling from the right, mental glossary, if you will, or, pulling from the bank account as far as before you disperse, you have to pull from something. So that's how ALS prepares you, is like, this is how you would approach a given situation like this. But when you're actually there and you're actually in the situation, it's different. It's different. It's one thing to read a book, but it's another thing to actually apply what you just read about. So the fear of leadership. First of all, I always talk about how fear is irrational. And I mean, it's 100% valid, but we must critique our thoughts. Our thoughts must be addressed properly, meaning that just because we think it doesn't make it true, doesn't make it false. We must address it properly, in context, objectively, using all the different disciplines such as religion, philosophy, physics, mathematics, English. We pull all these disciplines together and we say, from all my research that I've done, and I try to be as thorough as possible with all my research. I take all this information. Warren Buffett reads 6 to 8 hours a day. When he makes a decision at the end of the week, he has 40 plus hours of information to pull from in terms of making a quality decision. So, of course, you yourself, you have a degree. That degree is based on years of information. Whether or not you retained it, you passed milestones. You passed each individual block in terms of getting to the next point, to where you get a graduation degree. There's proof that you can complete a task. And that's simply what leadership is. Leadership is not being, Winston Churchill, Malcolm X, like just being that perfect, historically perfect person that everyone looks up to. Because most leaders are imperfect because they're human. And it's what I had to address myself as like, Brett, you're starting out. Yes, they gave you some troops. They're not expecting you to be perfect. They're expecting you to be human. And that's what a lot of people forget about the leadership talks and the leadership, all these adjectives, and a leader is quick and they're up early and they're fast and they're agile and they're strong and they're, the leader is the following. You have a long list of all these fancy words where we describe someone who leads. And really, at least from my opinion, the greatest leaders in my life have been the people that were approachable. The people that, I felt like I could trust them with my being vulnerable. Even as a man, being vulnerable with my leadership. I made a whole video. I did. Made a whole video about, my journey as far as getting out of my follow-on to Alaska, to Alson, and being stuck in Alaska for 3 or 4 years, and how my leadership didn't do anything astronomical, but they showed that they cared through action consistently. Even when I forgot about it, even when I stopped caring, even when I became discouraged about certain situations, like, all right, maybe I will be stuck in Alaska. Cool. And I made my peace with it. And then you have my leadership who step in and say, yo, we're still working on this. Until we get a definite no, we're still working on this. They showed effort. They were approachable. When I had an issue, I could go knock on their door, sit down, and they weren't sitting there texting and looking away and distracted while I was talking. They listened. They asked follow-up questions. They understood my situation well enough that they could at least give me a well-rounded answer. An answer that wasn't just, well, it's always been that way. We've tried to change that up last time. And, a couple years, this has been broken, but we tried to address this. They actually tried, which is all most people care about, especially from an officer's position. There's an invisible divide between the enlisted force and the officer force that no one talks about. I brought it up to my commander at the Comptroller Squadron. He did a one-on-one with me, and just talking, just introducing ourselves and our history and what we've gone through so far. And one thing I liked about our one-on-one conversation is that at the end, he had like a time set aside where I can ask him any question I could think of, any question. Obviously, you bring in respect factor, you bring in some protocol, some honor, and then you have all these questions available to you. Of course, I'm not asking him nothing off the wall and disrespectful. You get the point. But he said, any topic you want to talk about, as your leader, as the person responsible for your career, for your progression, for your health and safety, while you're in this military uniform, I'm responsible for you. Ask me whatever. And so one question I brought up to him, I asked him, and he's black, he's my first black commander, first black male commander at that. One question I asked him, I was like, do you ever, or have you ever felt loneliness in terms of your position as it relates to most of the force being followers, most of the force being enlisted. Have you ever felt lonely in regards to your position and how we can't just hang out the same way as me and another staff sergeant can hang out? We can't just go to each other's crib and have a drink because of the way it will be perceived. You have favoritism, you have teachers' pets, you have all the politics that's played in a given squadron and a given, military unit company. That there's certain principles that you don't violate when you have leadership and followership. There's certain amount of distance in between, and it's arguable whether or not it should be there. But his response was yes. Whereas he's male, black, officer, commander. I'm the last person to try to dissect everything in terms of how you describe a single human, because humans are humans. Despite how diverse we think we are and how separated we think we are, at our core, we're human. We want and need most of the same things. And at the tippy top, at the ends, at the extremes is where we differ. And it's where the beauty comes in as far as diversity. And it's where it should be celebrated as the areas that we like. It's like going to a food court and only having soul food available. Bro, when I see the Mexican restaurants, bro, like there's a certain piece of my heart that just, bro, you see that, bro. Go over to get that taco salad, bro. Because we love diversity. We go to restaurants. We drive down the street and we see different kinds of restaurants because we like the ability to choose from diversity. When we go to Olympics, the USA shows up with a race of every kind that are all Americans. And it's why we dominate. Our militaries are diverse. It's why we dominate. You go to any other country and see their force and compare their force to our force, it's different. It's different. So he mentioned how, just being in his position and then how he kind of diversifies at the extremes, it does get lonely. And it's imperative that he had to lean on other officers that were also like him, but other officers that were just because they're officer and human, qualified them to be friends, colleagues, So being an officer is definitely different. Obviously, I'm not an officer, but I've observed officers my entire career, my short little 4 years. And you definitely see differences of how they're required to lead at all times. At all times. There's moments where you see their vulnerability in terms of, you see their humanity. You see that, they have families too. They have friends too. They have hobbies too. They have needs too. They get tired. They get exhausted. They get burnt out because they're humans at their core. When the uniform comes off and we do PT, there are some officers that suck at push-ups. There's some officers that suck at running, just like enlisted do, because they're human. When you notice there's no rank on PT uniforms because it's humans that are training right now. When we play sports for PT, they get buckets just like everybody else because, bro, you're a victim on this court like everybody. I can't discriminate. You got to get the buckets too, bro. I don't care if you're a commander. I don't care how many stars on your chest. If you're wearing civilian clothes and you're on a basketball court, my trash talk may change, but my buckets will be consistent. Everybody gets the same work. So with that being said, let's dig into your question a little bit more. Yes, I would agree that going officer route would be ideal in terms of your qualifications and in regards to the effort that you've put into this degree. If you don't want to be an engineer anymore, then of course, change the playbook up, pick a new direction. But the fact that you've invested this much time, if that's the path that you actually want to embark on and you actually want to be an engineer, as far as building your career around it, do so. And the officer route will be the most ideal in terms of getting return on investment. You get paid more. And yes, you're immediately put into a leadership position because officers, that's what they do. Now, there is followership ideals and there's followership positions while being an officer because there's someone above you. And that's where you don't have to worry as much because as a butter bar, LT, when you come in, you're not expected to just lead the masses immediately. You're going to be following someone else. And that's the part a lot of people forget about is that before you can lead, you must know how to follow properly. And I don't want to get into this cliche ALS, doctrine where, oh my God, I just want to follow and I just want to serve and I just want to be blue. There's a place and time for it. All that typically burns out around senior airmen, where you've gone through all the phases of excitement, graduation, tech school, go through a little mini depression. You struggle a little bit. You graduate. You're back on 10. You're operational now. You get your first, you get your dorm room. You get your first apartment. You're back with your wife or husband, or you're back with your children. You're reunited, and you're getting a semblance of normal again. You're back in you're in the operational Air Force now, and then you go through a phase of, all right, that kind of wears off slowly. You get used to the area that you're living in. You might hate it. You might love it. You've traveled a little bit, but then you kind of get to that long stretch where the marathon begins, and now you're at the day in, day out, working, building, progressing, asking questions, challenging, figuring things out. And a lot of people forget that path, it seems endless sometimes. And so it's imperative that you realize that your job will be to follow just as much as it is to lead. Because unless you're O10, and even when you're O10, you report to somebody else. There's no point in the military where you will not have someone above you. No exceptions. The highest ranking general reports to a civilian. No exceptions. The president reports to someone else. The taxpayer, the cabinet, Congress, the Senate. There's always going to be someone above you, or next to you, or behind you. And so by realizing that, you realize that, first of all, you're not by yourself. So I can imagine the pressure associated with, how do I come in from being civilian, from being in college, doing whatever I was doing? You might have been having fun. You might have been turning up a little bit. Obviously you graduated, you're doing your thing. Your GPA determines, how smart you are, or how, your relative ability to pass a test or be obedient. There's different factors associated with the GPA. But then when you think about, all right, I'm going from being civilian you're 24 years old. You got your whole life ahead of you. You might be missing certain experiences, or you might have a lot of experiences. Who knows? But now you're coming to the military, and they're saying, if you want this position, you immediately outrank all the enlisted, all of them. The 30-year chief salutes you. The 30-year chief is under you. And they may have more experience, more wisdom, well-traveled, deployed all over the place, been at 10, 12 different bases. They've been in the uniform doing this probably before you were born, or, whatever. But then you realize, my position, they have leverage, but I have positional power. And that positional power has different rules than leverage. I'm telling you guys, like, you start reading certain books. Robert Greene will kind of open your mind in terms of how power works in this country and how it works across the world, honestly, because it's humans at the core. It's humans. You realize positional power versus leverage. A lot of the time, I would even dare to say most of the time, positional power is more valuable in the long run over leverage, because leverage tends to be, you got one shot. If you think about blackmail is illegal, mind you, so don't be doing no mess. But blackmail is leverage, where you have what they need or want, and they can't negotiate. That they have to surrender. But if you have positional power, you can make a call. Yo, go take care of this, bro. When you have assets, when you have options, when that person works for you, positional power, in a lot of cases, will beat out the leverage, unless the leverage is just too good. But the best, and I always say this about leverage, is that leverage is best unused. It's best unused. You're a threat if you know the truth. You're a target if you speak the truth. Leverage is best sometimes just kept up here. That's why I don't talk about everything on this channel. You can't talk about everything. You shouldn't talk about everything. Makes you a target. If you look at my Twitter, all my tweets are vague, non-specific, sometimes topical, but very rarely you will have to perceive what I'm talking about. And whatever you think about when you read my tweets, that's what you're thinking about. but you don't know what I'm thinking about when I wrote that because it's non-specific. It's you can't. It's like aiming at water, trying to hit it with a hammer. There's no target, and I do that intentionally because of the nature of the platform. But when you move through life like that, you realize there's different rules for different environments. There's positional power, there's leverage, and that as a staff sergeant, I only have so much leverage. As a person with no degree, I have zero leverage on the job market. Zero. It's why I have to build something from scratch or stay in the system I'm in or go to a different system and start from the bottom. I don't have leverage. This gentleman here, Brian, has leverage on the job market, which gives him options. When I came into the Air Force, I had one option, enlisted. You notice when you have leverage, you have more options. That's why when we hear people talking about settling, I will not settle for this person. I will not settle for this job. I will not settle for that car. I have options. That's the built-in assumption, is that you have options to choose. And because you can choose what you want, you won't take that. But a lot of people are mistaken when they say, I'm not going to settle for, especially in regards to dating. I promise you, it drives me up the wall to hear people talk about this, because the assumption is that, and again, this is where wisdom comes in, people, because certain things I want to say, I don't. But just realize this: the principle of the matter is that leverage is relative to your options. So this gentleman, Brian, trying to join the Air Force, he has leverage on the job market, which gives him more options than someone who doesn't have a degree, mechanical, engineering degree like myself. I came in enlisted because that was my only option. I didn't settle to be enlisted. That was my only option. He has options. So got a little, I love a good tangent early in the morning when I don't have to be in until 9. Some good stuff. Anyway, what else we got? So yeah, we touched on the OTS, getting a return on investment for your degree. And then the following. This may just be in my head, but I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't know how good of a leader I'll be. And to be honest, a little afraid of taking a leadership role. So that's what we touched on earlier, as far as you won't come in immediately as a leader. You come in with a positional power over the enlisted force. But that's all. A person like myself, who's been in for 4 years, will have more leverage over someone who with positional power that's been in for 6 months, because they just don't have the time or the experience or the knowledge or the wisdom to navigate that environment properly. And it's why you have the senior NCOs that raise up the young lieutenants and captains in some cases, where it's the senior NCO's job to help groom and to teach and to guide the young officers, because again, they have the knowledge. That the senior enlisted, they have the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience. They've been there long enough. Not only the timepiece, but the fact that they just, if they've progressed to a certain point that it's not easy to get to. You're talking about 1% of the 1% make it to chief. So when you have someone like a chief that's taking this young lieutenant who outranks him and says, yo, this is how you do this. This is how you navigate this. This is how you lead right here. This is how you communicate this. That's how that works. So again, you're not coming in to a position that they're expecting you to perform. They're expecting you to come in to learn. And again, that's where wisdom comes in. A lot of people enter new environments with the mindset of, I'm here to get something. I'm here to navigate something. I'm here to take over something. When in a lot of cases, you enter a new environment, it's your job to simply ask questions, to simply learn, to be someone's protege. You're not here to get something for free. You're here to invest your time to get the wisdom that someone else had already invested, minus the pain. Because a lot of people had to go through something. You have a lot of chiefs with Article 15s, and they can tell the younger force and the people that have just been in longer. Your age is really irrelevant, but they can tell people who've been in less time, lesser rank, listen, this is the mistakes I made. Avoid that junk right there. Don't do that. There's a reason why I'm very skeptical on drinking in public. I don't care who's around me. I don't care if it's on leadership. I don't care if the whole base is doing it. If it's First Friday, I'm very slow to drink in certain environments. Not because I'm better than people, but because of wisdom and because of how can this end right with me doing the following, with all these different variables at play. Some things don't add up. And wisdom tells you to see trouble far off. Not get up close on it, but see trouble far off and hide yourself. Hide yourself. You see a grizzly bear while hiking in Alaska. You don't walk up to it and then try to spray with bear spray and then get mad when it mauls you. You see the bear far off and you go back to the car and don't go hiking again, ever. Ever. So yeah, you're not coming in to lead immediately. You're coming into positional power, meaning your position alone gives you a certain amount of power, but that's it. You get saluted, you get recognized in terms of protocols and in terms of position that you have, but that is all because you're in position of learning. And of course, you'll be giving certain requirements, that, while you're learning, all right, you're in charge of this. All right, you're going to lead this. And by the act of doing is sometimes the only way to learn something. And a lot of leaders, including myself, just my last position in Alaska, I wasn't trained to do it. I was sent there and that was it. And they say, you either swim or you drown. It's called immersion. You get immersed in certain environments. A lot of people will argue that the best way to learn a new language is to simply be in that environment, constantly hearing it. That's how children learn. It's not that, their parent, those of you who are watching that are parents, you probably didn't sit down and teach your child the English language. You just spoke it to them. And because they were immersed in the environment associated with that variable, the human mind learns. And a lot of variables associated with leadership, that's how you learn. And it's uncomfortable because it challenges your comfort zone. And it forces you to try something new. It forces you to ask questions. It forces you to tell someone else and acknowledge to someone else, I don't know. And a lot of times, as a young officer, you will have to tell the enlisted force, listen, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. And you will be people will respect you greatly for simply uttering the words, I don't know. I was wrong. I messed that up. Because, again, especially starting basic training, it's almost as if there's a fear of God equivalent that's given to officers where we just see, oh my God, look. And what's that, clover? Is that an eagle? He got the eagles on him? You got a star? And you don't realize those people started from the same place you did, just along, it's a different path, it's a different pipeline. But everyone starts from zero. And so something someone told me a while back, it was basically in regards to, my fear of being a supervisor. And matter of fact, it was my ALS instructor. And he said, having a fear of being a supervisor is kind of a sign or a clue that you'll probably make a great supervisor because you respect it. And I don't want to get respect and fear confused, because if you respect someone, you'll treat them a certain way. If you fear someone, the symptoms might look the same, but it's different because it's rooted in irrationality. Fear is a condition of the mind. Danger is a condition of reality. Respect is acknowledging someone else's difference. Honor is acknowledging someone else's difference. It's response to someone else's difference. If Elon Musk walked in my house right now, I would give him the mic and I would ask him questions. He would sit here and I would sit off screen and ask him questions. I wouldn't have my hand out, yo, can you give me a Tesla? I would ask him why you started Tesla. I would ask him questions because it's a response to his greatness. A lot of people try to take out deposits, just give me stuff, give me stuff. No, the proper response to greatness is a question. It's honor, it's respect. So make sure you keep those things contextualized properly. What else we got? Obviously, they'll train me, and sometimes they say the best way to confront a fear is to deal with it directly. That's facts. But I'm worried about failure and letting people around me down more than myself. And that's a shared sentiment. And that's what I dealt with my therapist in regards to being perceived as incompetent. I diagnosed myself with perceived incompetence because I was struggling with my own abilities while no one else around me could tell, because no one else knew my job but me. And of course, me being myself, and of course my therapist, I had two separate therapists labeled me as a perfectionist. And of course, I disagreed. I'm like, no, well, you got to define words properly. I'm not a perfectionist. But then if I looked at the evidence objectively and took myself out of it and said, here's a person who always wants to win, who's not accepted with anything being less than perfect. Like even right now, doing this live stream, the amount of space above my head is too much. It's too much. It's too much. The perfectionist in me likes things to be right. Just in order. Now, of course, it's not OCD. It's not to a point where I can't function with dysfunction. Like in the military, you will learn how to function with dysfunction. It's guaranteed because not everything is going to be fixed. Not everything can be fixed. The best surveillance plane we've ever had in the Air Force, the SR-71, leaked fuel on the ground. It had to be refueled right after it took off. It was imperfect, but it worked. It accomplished what it needed to accomplish. That's the position that we are in as military, and especially as leaders, is that first thing we acknowledge is that my humanity will prevent me from being perfect. That's the nature of breathing fresh air, is that I'm imperfect by default because we grow over time. We learn over time. And even once we reach an old age, you have some old fools. You have old fools who did not learn, who did not seek wisdom. And so the only thing they did was age. It's crazy. The only thing they did was age, get older. They survived. That's not the goal. That's not the goal. My goal is to grow, to progress, and to do it in a state of wholeness. Meaning, I don't want to. My mom used to say. My mom will always tell me, I want to get to heaven with all my limbs, with my eyesight, with my hearing. Like I don't want to be limping into heaven. I don't want to just barely make it, and I'm just blinded and I can't see. I want to get there in one piece. You take a flight somewhere, you would like the plane to get there in one piece. I don't want the pilot bragging about how he landed in the ocean and, it's only taking on a little bit of water and we landed safely in this desert. The airport's a couple miles away, but we landed on the ground. I want to make it in one piece, whole, healthy, with probably the number one variable that I value over anything is peace. It's peace. Not to be confused with the lack of stress. Some people want an environment with no stress. That environment probably only exists in the comfort zone. And nothing grows in the comfort zone. Nothing grows in the comfort zone. Probably regret. So, the absolute statements always have one exception. So I would change the quote. Regret is the only thing that grows in the comfort zone. You may not see it immediately, but there will come an age where you have to address that regret that accrued over time. So, the main thing is one thing you have to acknowledge and one thing you have to do, you won't have a choice. And whether you choose the enlisted or officer, is that you will have to get your feet moving. You already mentioned you're talking to a recruiter. That's the start, is getting your feet moving in the right direction. And you don't need to have all the answers. If you're on a highway and you're going to a certain, Dallas is that way, well, you might not see any signs for Dallas, but you might see a sign that's, on the way there. You might see a town that's halfway to Dallas and you say, all right, well, that's telling me I'm going the right direction. That's what you're starting off with. Especially talking to someone who's enlisted in the Air Force. Someone who seeks wisdom. I study mentorship. I'm imperfect myself. If you wanted someone perfect, I'm the wrong person to look at. A lot of my failures are documented on this channel. Failing my first AFSC in tech school. Why? Lost focus. I was pursuing other things with my time. But I graduated the next one with honors. Honor graduate in basic training. Top 10% of my class. Why? Because I'm perfect? No, I'm different. I'm just different. I'm not better than anyone. I'm different than them. We can't compare ourselves. You don't compare a hammer to a ladder. They have two different purposes. My purpose is my difference. My difference is my purpose. My design is a clue to my function. The way I think is a clue to the problem I'm designed to solve in this environment. That's why this channel is different than any other channel. They will not say what I'm going to say, and I won't say what I'm not. I'm not entertaining like anyone else. I'm different. And the second you realize that whatever leader that pops in your head when you say, "All right, I'm going to be an officer, so that means I need to be like this person." No, you need to be you. You need to be Brian. I'm going to be an officer in this way. This is what I set out to be. This is the values I uphold. This is the person I want to be towards other people. This is the person I want to be seen as. There's something called controlling other people's perception of you, where you must consistently consider someone else's opinion. Only in the context of, I want to be helpful. I want to be seen as productive. I want to be seen. I want to be respected. And a lot of people think that, especially in regards to, like, if you think about relationships and dating, the number one thing I value in relationships and dating is respect. Love, all that comes later. Romanticism, it's a sign of deception. No one lives a romantic life. You see that in the movies. On a first date, that's how you know someone wants something from you, is when they're being romantic. Hi, dear, how was your day? What do you want? Go shopping. Here, take it. Give him a credit card. Don't worry. A lot of times we just tend to overthink things, and it's why this channel tends to be kind of valuable, is that I've done all the overthinking, so you don't have to. When I enter a position, I've already overthought it. Being a supervisor, it took me realizing that all my favorite supervisors were simply approachable. They were just people I could have a conversation with about anything. Within certain bounds, obviously, there's all these disclaimers. You get the point. My favorite supervisors were approachable. They weren't so busy that they didn't have time to answer a question or guide me about the following or something. So yeah, coming in this position, don't overthink it. Don't undersell yourself. Don't shoot lower just so you can guarantee you hit it. That's a lot of the problems with a lot of people experience failure, is that they aim low and they actually hit it. You aim for the floor, you hit the floor. No, everyone's afraid of shooting high. Everyone's aiming for the middle. Everyone's aiming for upper middle class. Everyone's at the bottom. It's overcrowded down here, and then we're going to aim for middle class. Well, you're all aiming for middle class. I'm not aiming for middle class. I'm just not. I'm not built for it. So, I think we covered everything. And I'm going to look at the comments real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything. And yeah, first of all, you must realize you will let someone down. That was the last little piece. You will let someone down. It's going to happen. The way you do it is based on your character. Get very good. Get excellent at the ability to say, I was wrong. I was at the Pentagon working with my boy Vance. We were staying late, working on stuff, just working. Supervisor was out of town. And one thing he said to me, he said, like, because me and him would have these debates going back and forth, just arguing about nothing. But it was intellectually stimulating, just going back and forth, arguing about stuff. And I can't remember what we were talking about, but he basically mentioned that I would never admit when I was wrong. He's like, you could be backed into a corner, but you will find a way to rationalize your way out of it. And it's true. I'm very good at rationalizing. It's just intellectual gymnastics, just jumping around. But I don't ever want to be known as someone who cannot admit when they're wrong. You don't ever want to be that person, especially as a leader. You want the people that are following you always thinking in the back of their head, if he's wrong, he will acknowledge it, which means I can trust him even that much more. The humanity will be known. He's not just insignia. He's not just this person, Captain Bars or Butter Bar or whatever, Cloverleaf. This person is human and has been charged with leading me. It's not that deep. An officer is solving a problem just like enlisted staff sergeant is solving a problem. You're getting paid. Both of you are getting paid to solve a problem. This problem might be leading people. My problem might be leading people or leading, a task or solving a problem on a lower scale. It might just be delegated from the person above me. But at the end of the day, we're two humans solving a problem, getting paid for it. And then when you start there, you realize, all right, it's not that deep. Leadership is not this mythical idea of, oh my God, look how he carries books with him everywhere. He's just a walking library, and he has a microphone. He does lectures, and he's just drinking his wine and sipping on scotch. And it's not deep like that. It's two humans working together. One happens to have positional power. One has leverage. You work together. And hopefully both of you get what you want from it, because that's the whole point, is getting what you personally desire from the military, because the military is going to get what they need. They're going to get your time. They're going to get your effort one way or another. You sign that contract, they will collect. So it's imperative that you realize, all right, this is what I need from the military. This is what I need from this experience. And then you go after that. And then, of course, you accomplish your core tasks. But at the end of the day, this is why I'm here. Yeah, so don't overthink it, man. Don't overthink it. I see you're online right now. Yeah, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it, man. Start small. Start with followership. Ask questions. People know you just got here. It won't be a mystery. People know you're just starting out. Don't think too far ahead. Start with the first step in front of you. So hope that answers your question. Hope that was able to ease some type of pain or stress from your mind, that you can see what you're potentially embarking on holistically and objectively, and you realize many people have gone before you and done it just as well as you will. There are other staff sergeants before me that dealt with having their first troops. I was someone's first troop. You learn, you grow, you progress. So look at the comments real quick. Who we got in here? Wadner. For now, I'll only address the questions that are on topic. Whenever I do a live Q&A, we'll address the random questions. With the exception of anyone who throws in a super chat, we'll address it real quick. But yeah, I gotta go. What else we got? Got Rodney in here. I'll address that one later. Appreciate everybody joining the chat this morning. You got Zach Bennett, Allie, Daryl Green, Nigel. Appreciate everybody joining in. Yeah, this is not a live Q&A. It's before work, so really don't got the time to speculate and to muse and to go on into the ether. But we'll definitely get those addressed. For anyone who joins my Patreon, you have pretty much 24 access. So if you have a question, feel free to join there, and we can definitely converse. But yeah, head to work. Ryan, hope that answered your question. Hope I was able to shed some light on your situation. Be encouraged. I will see y'all in the next stream.